author and co-author for many papers in the referred journals, and also the conference contribution. He has given several invited talks at international conferences, and his research interests cover several aspects in accounting, but mainly in Sharia audit, corporate governance and taxation. Now, without further ado, let me invite Yang Berbahagia Prof. Dato to start the session today. Dato, I will pass to you.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to all of you. Thanks to Dr. Colin for a kind introduction. Alhamdulillah, I'm also very glad to have this session with all of you. I would say that this is a knowledge sharing session. So this afternoon, maybe we will share together, because some of you are students in our faculty, maybe also from other faculties. And I see that there are also lecturers in this session. So it'll be good to share the knowledge together in terms of the real usefulness of theories, and why and how it can be used in your research, particularly your PhD and master's research programs. Inshallah, let me upload first, share the screen. I hope all of you can see the screen. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirrahmanirrahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil mursalin Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Okay, inshallah, we will discuss some aspects of these theoretical foundations in accounting research, which is quite an important component in any research, more particularly to accounting research. But I see that over the years, the students who do not want to dwell much into the theoretical foundations. If possible, maybe they like to see one or two theories that is applied somewhere else and then bring it and then finish. But actually, that shouldn't be the case. You know, the student is more interested in the data collection. I know I'm starting maybe in a wrong manner, but I can share you the experience that I have. In more on the data, you know, not even looking at the framework as mentioned by Dr. Norazlina, and the whole process, the whole research process. So if you look into the literature and all that, then we know that as a master's or PhD research student, we should be more interested to know what are the theoretical foundations or the theories that can be adopted in the study, but that will guide you, you know, that will guide you and also in understanding this thing. Inshallah. So probably I hope that I can share something, but I also prefer that this session will be a two-way communication session. So you can also interrupt me, and then you can also give input. Your comments are most welcome, and inshallah, you know, that will be helpful also. Because after some time, it's good that GSM asked me to do this, although I was quite busy in so many other things. But I say it's okay. I think it's good to, you know, do a talk, a small talk about this, and then to share my thoughts on this matter, especially when we supervise students and so on. Right. Okay. Accounting per se, you know, we know that the general philosophy is there. Okay. The general philosophy is there. And accounting is actually very much highly related to finance. Okay. Although the accountants produce the data, you know, the annual report and all that, the finance guys use that data and then also do the analysis. And we also use the data, right? So we are very much like a sibling with the finance guys. And so we are interrelated actually. And then the other one is we are actually a sub-discipline of economics. Actually, accounting talks a lot about economics matters. And it comes from, even the theories come from economics and some aspect from the mathematics, okay? Because of course we all know the foundation of accounting. Okay? And when we read more about some of these, those have written about Islamic accounting, even Christopher Napier, he has compiled the historical development of Islamic accounting. Very interesting, to look into how and why it differs from the conventional accounting. So accounting, as I said just now, very much interrelated to a number of other disciplines, very much to economics. Okay, we cannot separate ourselves from economics. That's why our theories also come from economics. Okay, quite a number of them. Whether theory of firm, theory of state. So that comes from the economics part. And then of course finance. Comes from finance, education, psychology, sociology, and so on. So we cannot say that we are by ourselves. We have other disciplines that that also give input to our accounting discipline. So when we look into theories, it's good to have also look at what is happening in other disciplines. Okay, so that we can also learn from them, which we have learned also, for the past, if you look into the theories that have been developed, okay, and adopted in accounting per se. And then accounting itself, we have the sub-disciplines. We have financial, one of the major ones, then management, information system, auditing, taxation. But since we are in USIM, so when we look into accounting, you also like to look at what is the Islamic accounting all about, isn't it? The Islamic perspective, right? Whether or not it gives a different perspective compared to the accounting that we know, that have been trained and things like that. So I say there are a lot of authors and researchers, even what do you call it, Gaffikin in Australia. When I was there, he was not interested in Islamic accounting, but now when the students went around, and then he was looking into the Islamic accounting, very interesting. The guy who talks about history of accounting, finally he started to read about Islamic accounting. He was a professor in Australia. So I think that is something good, coming out from well-known professors in certain area, whether it is from the critical perspective and so on. And then tax alone is okay, but we also have a number of students looking at Zakat. Okay, so what about the theories? Are they related, right, from a tax point of view, and also from Zakat point of view, right? Because here, I have some questions here, right? Tax is mandatory by law, and Zakat is also mandatory. If you read the Quran, there's about 30 times mentioned about Zakat. As mandatory. If tax is it refers to public policy, then Zakat is not a social policy. It should be also a public policy, Islamic public policy. That's how we have to understand things. We can compare, and then we can discuss the role played by each of these in tax, in Zakat, and so on. But I think it's okay. If when you are doing research there, then I think you have to read more. Because people talk about social finance, everything social finance, but Zakat is not purely for social finance, because Zakat is actually compulsory, right? Then if you make it social, and maybe then I think it becomes a different policy, okay? Because tax is also a policy. It is a fiscal policy. Okay, those who are doing zakat. So I know quite a number of you are doing zakat. Inshallah, have a look at it. I'm just trying to write some papers on that. It's time lah. Okay, and then auditing. All right, auditing. We know auditing very well. Okay, some or other, when we had these IFIs, for the past 40 years, 4 decades now, then maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, Sharia auditing came to being. We started that because we thought that there is something that we have to learn, something that will become big when about more than 10 years ago. So I think that is another aspect in Sharia auditing. But in auditing, I think there's a lot of research been done. Okay, there's a lot of research done. And then in terms of even theories that will be applied in auditing. Information system, yes, I see not many students are doing on this. Although I think if you look into, in FAM, you mostly look into IFIs. Even in IFIs, there's a special requirements for the banks, Islamic banks and this thing. And this is developing very fast, information system for IFIs. And even when I talk to the CEOs of the Islamic banks or Takaful, they're not so sure, because how long the brick and mortar business will be there, isn't it? Because banks will be collapsing very soon. Because you look at the trend now, looking into e-banking or even cryptocurrency, and then we have the Bitcoin or e-wallet, a lot of things happening. So probably this is where again, even in Islamic finance, Islamic banking, the IT system, how does it work, and what are theories that are relevant for that should also be considered to me. Financial accounting and reporting, I think this is the major one. We're all doing around here most of this thing, but I seldom see students, want to really work on the accounting standards and things like that. I mean, the conventional accounting standards are there, but rather more on the Islamic accounting standards. Of course, as we know from ALFI for the IFIs, but now we should start looking into the non-IFIs, ICM, Islamic capital markets, and so on. Okay, even for the Waqaf, Awqaf institutions or Zakat institution. But alhamdulillah, I think there's some work being done in that area. So I think this thing. But the students, maybe the students should also, if you're interested, should also be looking into those aspects. Now, this Surah alBaqarah and verse 282. I think most of us also know, all of us know that this is the longest surah. Longest verse, ayah. The longest ayah 282 in Quran. Okay, and it refers to many things that are relevant to our research and all that. Okay, and this is the longest ayah 282, which actually I took from translation from Yusuf Ali. When he talks about transactions. Okay, transactions involving future obligations, reduce them to writing. Okay, so you have to write, you have to record them. Okay, and then scribe down faithfully as between the parties. So recording is very important as prescribed by this verse. Okay, in Surah Al-Baqarah. And of course, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala also give us what we can do during these transactions that can happen. Of course, He asks us to fear Him. The fear is to Him. The accountability is to Him, right? And then, of course, if this is the case, then the transactions that are taking place in between parties and all that should be done properly, recording. So that's a basic thing that we know. And then, of course, if what happened, the party is mentally deficient, weak, and things like that. So then Allah says, no, let's get two witnesses. Okay, if there are not two men, then a man and two women, and so on. Okay, but this thing not to reduce to writing your contract. That's why in Islamic, since the contract is very important, right, for the future period, whether or not it's small or big, it doesn't matter the amount, right? It doesn't matter the amount. And then very important is as the evidence. As the evidence, inshallah. So that becomes this thing. Then of course it says, but take witness whenever you make a commercial contract, and let neither scribe nor witness suffer harm. So it must be in proper order. All right. When we look into governance, Sharia governance, right, whether or not this thing has been followed in the real sense, okay, in the real sense. So that was verse 282, the longest verse in the Quran, and then we have verse 284. Okay, so that's why when you talk about theories and all that, in USIM, especially in USIM, I think we should have a look the sources properly, especially from the Quran. There are a lot of things that we can deliberate on, and then bring that into this thing. Because when we talk about some of the theories that we use, are they in line? Are they in line? With what the Quran says, what Allah says in the Quran. Say in verse 284, it says, to Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth, and whether you manifest what is in your minds or hide it, Allah will call you to account according to it. So it means accountability, is to Allah first, right? To the Creator first, and then not the theories that we have doesn't mention that, doesn't mention that. So this is which clearly says about our accountability, first and foremost, is to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Then only we talk about, we're talking about whatever the principles, whatever the stakeholders are, and so on. So I think that some work has been done, quite okay, alhamdulillah, I think for the past 10 to 15 years, a lot of work been done also on Islamic accounting. Right, and then here, like Hamid says that Islamic accounting is a tool in providing the business information and accountability, accountability to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala as well as the Muslims, right? And of course, whatever we talk about here, the financial data to stakeholders, but it must be done within the bounds of Sharia and delivering it according to the socio-economic objective. Okay, so that's why accounting is also important to achieve a number of objectives, even in Islam. So I mean, if you say that it is also part of socio-economic objective, then when we study the firm or even the organization, okay, and so on, do they really achieve the socio-economic objective or not? That is also very important. And also, are they following the Sharia principles, Sharia rules, and so on? Inshallah, if there's anything, you can also ask me. Now we get into theory, right? Then we will try to discuss the theories. And then since we understand Surah alBaqarah, Ayah 282 and 284, then maybe how do we jive, all these theories? Maybe the students later on you can see lah, and then you can also discuss among yourself. This is what the PhD and the master's research should be, coming out with more rigorous discussions, especially using, then I think you will also get a lot of ideas. Now, basically, theory systematically developed, organize ideas to explain a phenomena. Okay, if you're studying the firm, then of course there's a phenomena in the firm, right? But is it systematically developed? And then are the ideas organized? Okay, so it's a total set of empirically testable, interconnected ideas formulated to explain those phenomena. And phenomena is everything. Now by right we should be, I should be presenting it face to face, but you see, because of the COVID, so this is another thing that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has already given some tests, so we think that is a great phenomena, and it happens once in every in the century. So then, what is the real phenomena that we have? And then, of course, it affects accounting work, it affects auditing work, it affects tax work, and a lot of things that is affecting, right? Because the whole business cycle is not moving as used to be. Although we say it is new normal, but the whole business cycle, business normal, is not normal, right? Then we back to again to the MCO, don't know, 3.0, 4.0. Okay, theories are not eternal entities. They exist only as long as they continue to explain facts or connect the relevant data used in the research. Okay, so very important is to understand the basic concept. What is a theory? Okay, and then of course later on, why is it important and how to use it? Okay, and how to use it in the research. So according to Kalinga and Lee, he says theory is a set of interrelated constructs, meaning to say concepts. There are a number of concepts and they are all interrelated. They are not separate by themselves. So they are interrelated. Definitions, okay. If you look into whichever theory they choose, you can see the number of definitions there. And also propositions that present a systematic view of phenomena. So the idea is, what is the phenomena that you are studying? So is that research theory relevant to that phenomena, right? Otherwise, then maybe you are not matching the theory with your the study itself and the issues, okay, the phenomena that you are being studied. And of course, we all know that is the variables they choose, and these variables must also come from the theories, right? That have been studied and strongly used by others in their studies. And then to explain, predict the phenomena. That finally becomes the last part, whether or not you can explain and predict the phenomena by using a theory. So actually, when you start from chapter 1, although now I see that most of them don't talk about theory there, but then when you go down, even literature review and all that, so we will see later on, the theory should be there, to explain a lot of things. So I see over the years, I see that the students, they like to, the theory is not important, the attitude is quite different now. It is just to explain one theory or two theories and that's it, I think that's quite wrong. You will see that it is very important from the very beginning of the chapter right up to the end, right? And the whole process. Because when you want to explain, when you want to predict the phenomena, right, whether or not that theory can be used. So what is a theory? So there are three things. The definition says there are three things. A theory is a set of propositions consisting of defined and interrelated constructs. Okay, so then it's a set of propositions, defined and interrelated construct. And very important, theory sets out the interrelations. Okay, interrelated set of variables or the construct. And so it presents a systematic view of the phenomena. That's why people ask always in the YY, what is the issue, right? What are you trying to study? Do you have a problem? What is the problem? We don't use it as a phenomena, but we say that, do you have a problem? How big is the problem or how small is the problem? Is it important to be studied, right? And then if that is the case, then we look into the theories to explain the phenomena or what is going to happen, the problem that you want to study, right? So identifying the issues and problem also very important, right? In your research process. So theory will explain the phenomena, and then sometimes I see that this is something not happening. So they don't use the theory, you must use a theory to explain the phenomena. But I see that sometimes, no, as though it is two separate things. That shouldn't be the case. So it does so by specifying which variables are related to which variables. So the interrelationship of the variables and how they are related, so that the researcher can predict from certain variables to certain other variables. So you want to choose a variables also should be also from these theories, right? It's not that you pluck from the trees or pluck from the air, you cannot do that. You have to look into theory. And as much as we always emphasize on the literature review, right? But you also must review the theories, right? You must review the theories to understand what each theory talks about and why is it relevant, to your study. So just now, what is a theory? Then why is it important? All right. So theory provides significant guidelines. So it gives you a guideline. So that's why from the beginning to the end of the research work, 3 or more than 3 years, it should be a guideline. Rather than to say that no. And then after some time, after all the data comes in, no, we don't know where's the theory. So nobody is using the theory, and that's also a problem. Trails, by pointing to areas that are most likely to be fruitful, areas in which meaningful relationship among variables are likely to be found. Because just now we talk about variables, okay? So what's the relationship among the variables? Okay, are they interconnected? Are they this thing? Of course, when you do your analysis, it comes out. But the theory will also give you some idea about what you're doing. And that will also be a guide, in this thing. So here it says that a theory narrows down the range of facts to be studied, right? That's why theory must be used to select the variables. Theory must be used to do your theoretical framework and also your conceptual framework, but not theory is just explained by itself and then it stands alone. It shouldn't be the case. So viewpoint direction, okay. So this is just like just now. So a theory suggests potential problems for a study against new investigative study. So the theory will suggest new problems, right? And then probably from there, if they have been studied or not well studied, not thoroughly studied by others, then you should bring it into your study, right? That will give us give more, what do you call it, weightage, then your PhD will be much better, your thesis, inshallah. So of course we cannot run away, theory and research and the practice, right? So they're interconnected, right? And it's good to know when we talk from theoretical perspective, you're conducting the research, is it the same in the practice? Because we see the practice, it cannot be, sometimes it differs. It differs also. Whether in the banks, whether in the construction sector, manufacturing sector, right? Even in the service sector and so on. Probably I think the idea, because in the practice, they want to do things fast. They want to clear things as soon as possible. Okay, so for them, maybe the theory will not be that important, right? But then we know that theory will give the idea of a better practice from the research, that all of you are conducting. Okay, so then we'll give you a better idea and to improve the practice, because the practitioners will not have the time. Okay, they may not have the time to do the research on that, unless they are big organizations. Otherwise, they don't have the time. So only from master's, PhD research, you can give more input and also how to improve the practice. Accounting theory, as I mentioned, accounting is very much related to economics, sociology, finance, psychology, education, and many other disciplines. That's why, if possible, you have to read widely and see what are the theories that have been used in accounting, but hopefully also from other disciplines, especially economics, sociology. I mean, now we talk also about behavioral accounting, behavioral auditing, behavioral finance, and so on. So everything's related to behavior of the people, right? So that is very important also, right? Instead of just looking at this thing. But I think there are many studies, most of the students would prefer to do that rather than look at accounting standard settings and all that, especially the Islamic accounting standard settings. Maybe I've tried with few of you, I think. Very hard to convince also, why? Because it's tough. I don't know if it's tough or not, but I thought the whole idea is, if you can do some work that has been not done by others, that will be your selling point. And then you can do much, much better, in many areas. Like my student in Bahrain, Adil, he did something which no one talked about at that time. But then when he did it and after published, mashallah, so that was easier for him. The challenge is there. The challenge is there, but if you listen to everyone, they'll say, oh, no, do a simple one, and then let's finish the PhD and get it done. Positivistic theories. Okay, this is positivism. Okay, looking into a lot of phenomena, okay, and things like that. And this is very, very quite common, and positive theory is part of it. And normally when you talk about positive, then you talk about normative, right? Then you must see which research theory is good for you. Whether or not because most of the studies have, like in accounting, for instance. Okay, let me see. I think this one. So in accounting, mostly is positive accounting theory. Okay, very popular is the Watson Zimmerman. Okay, Watson Zimmerman study. And in fact, if you look into all these theories, interestingly, it came out in the 60s and 70s. After that, no more theory. I don't know. We don't see many theories coming up from for accounting or even for other disciplines. Maybe the way we do things has slowed down. But it's possibly decided. Sometimes even when we do something new, like Islamic accounting or reporting, you can see that it contradicts with the theories that we have. So then probably we can suggest something, a proposition, come up with this thing or not. But using the old theory, whether or not the new phenomena will fall into that theory or it contradicts that theory, that is a very good discussion if it is from the Islamic perspective itself. And here, I think all of you know that it's always about the efficient market hypothesis, capital market, right? Watson Zimmerman studies always been on the efficient market hypothesis. It's about capital market. But it is good to see that also in from ICM, Islamic capital market, whether or not this theory is applicable or not. I know there's a lot of finance people are using it, but never question it, in the sense that is it very relevant, how relevant it is to the Islamic capital market, when we have the Sharia compliance, Sharia principles, Sharia rules, and so on. And of course, we have the elements that are not allowed, of course, riba, garar, maisir. So when you talk about all these things, can we also adopt this positive accounting theory or not? And then it talks about efficient market hypothesis and how efficient is ICM. Okay, how efficient is ICM? Even our bursa, Malaysian bursa, is it efficient as the Wall Street or not? Okay, Wallahu alam. So this is I know from the finance guys to look into that, and then see whether or not this thing, discussing how positive accounting theory can be used, especially in developing countries or even in Muslim countries, and that's why you have to dissect these theories, understand the theories, and then it can be applied in the context of from the Islamic perspective. Right. I think they have some of. I'm not saying this is exhaustive. I'm not saying this is the all. No. Maybe a few examples that I think very popularly used by our students. Okay. Very popularly used by our students. Quite a number of you. Every time you see, it's about a firm, it's about a governance, it's about a whatever. Then it's the agency theory. Okay. The contract between the principal and the agent. But as now, as I mentioned just now about Surah Al-Baqarah. Okay, the contract is between us and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Okay, and that must be the first objective of the first requirement. Okay, so agency theory, how? Right? Namala, I also like to know your feedback. So if we are talking about when the agent failed, and then there's a lot of problems. The principals have some expectations, right? And then what? So where does it fall into the Islamic accounting perspective? Will that also be this thing? So that's why if we are looking into the IFIs or even what do you call it, the Sharia compliant companies, is agency theory that we use is enough? Is it enough or not? Okay. That's why it's better to study the theory and then dissect the theory and then look at the theory thoroughly, whether it complies with Islamic perspective, especially even from Maqasid point of view. That will give us a better perspective, a different perspective from other studies that others are doing. Then, of course, rational, I see not many are using this rational choice theory. This is about decision making, okay, how and why choices are made. And of course, how to optimize the choices, all right? Then if you're talking about the manager's choices, right? And then looking to accounting standard, because I don't see many studies coming up from there. When we have a new accounting standard, what are the choices they have? Okay, of course, in Malaysia, we don't adopt the AUFI standards, but it is compulsory, it's mandatory, more or less mandatory, right? Most of the GCC and so on, MENA countries, and also in Pakistan and Sudan, they've adopted, what do you call it, AUFI. So it's good to look also from their perspective, what are they doing? So maybe this choice theory can be also relevant to them, although all of the whole world is saying that IFRS, right? But when it comes to AUFI, now if you look into the, I'll discuss AUFI, the latest revision they've made, they mentioned that it is not only for IFIs, but later on also for the Sharia compliant companies, just like Malaysia, right? IFIs, yes, they have all the structure, the governance and everything, but the non-IFIs, until today we have problems, what will be their reporting style and all that. Is it in compliance with Sharia principles? Human relation, I think Hotpot, I think most of you already use it also, especially if you're looking from the management perspective, looking into motivation, leadership, supervisory, management, leadership, and so on, especially in budgeting. Okay, Hotpot study mostly on the budgeting. So one of the aspects is on budgeting. I don't know how many students in FAM are doing budgeting and also management accounting studies. So that will also be interesting because you're looking at the internal reporting rather than the external reporting. I know sometimes very difficult to get data for internal reporting, budgetary process and all that. But it'll be good, if the studies are done to understand this theory. And then from Islamic perspective, okay, human relation, Hablum minallah, hablum minan-nas. So we can say that yes, the first thing is our relationship with Allah, rather than only the relationship with people, right? Nas. So the understanding of it and how to defend that from the Islamic perspective, okay, and relationship, the two relationship. Here they only talking about motivation, supervisory, management, okay, but there's no alhamdulillah. So that is more important, relationship with Allah, and then how to bring that up in the theoretical perspective. Positive account theory, I think just now we went through because it's very unique. And then a lot of studies been actually done on the capital market. Okay, capital market. So I see that a number of studies are being done also in our case from the Islamic capital market. But you must dissect, to understand whether it really applies into the Islamic perspective. Resource dependent theory also popular, very popular, but there must be justification of why you want to use resource dependent theory, because it's all about firm survival through acquisition, maintenance of resources. And then of course, companies or organizations that do not have the resources will try to establish a relationship with others, and they try to get as much resources as possible. I think if you look into in certain contexts, like let's say from Japan, Japanese companies, right? They don't have much resources in Japan. Of course, they will look for other countries that have resources, even in China and so on, right? But it must be relevant to the study. How to say that it is resource dependent. The company is really dependent on the resources. What are resources the company wants or the firm wants? Why is it important to the firm, right? And then in economy, I think the conventional economy talks about resources are limited. Okay, resources are limited. I didn't have the time actually. I had the, resources are limited. But what does the Quran says? Are resources limited in Islam? Okay, are they limited? Are they really limited? How limited is limited? If you read the surah carefully, a certain surah, I think then the idea is there's no limit. Wallahu alam. It's a question of how do you manage the resources? They say Allah also always tell us not to destroy what we have. The problem is destruction maybe. So then you have to see resources from one perspective, and then what is actually the company is looking for, and then also Islamic perspective. Probably that will give you a better thing. Normative, and this is just the opposite of positive. So very interesting. When I was in Australia doing a master's, I have these two school of thoughts, guys coming from two school of thoughts, one from positive side and the other guy is from normative side. MashaAllah, it made my life difficult, but at least we learn, so here it is, they prescribe standards, looking at what is happening now, and then they prescribe standard. This is what ought to be, they will say no, and how, what to be done, ought to be, this is the best method. So they prescribe. Okay? So then we see how they go and observe, become, like New South Wales University, there was one professor. So she actually embedded herself in the hospitals and all that to collect data, observing. Like now in COVID, of course, who wants to go to hospital, right? And then sit down there and observe and collect data. And because everybody is scared of the virus. So the idea is criticism, criticize the present arrangements and calls for change in order to create a better future. Wallahu alam. I'm not so sure whether that happens or not, but the idea is what we have, the methods that we have, is not good enough for them. Then of course they will discuss, and this normative theory discusses how, and what is the best method that should be adopted. That's very interesting. Okay, so like in the accounting methods and the rules and standards that we have, there was a big debate about historical cost accounting, right? So of course, many what do you call it, the professors and all that didn't agree with that. I don't know how young or how old you are. So last time we had many other alternative methods, right? We had the replacement cost method, current cost accounting method, and in Australia, the popular guy was Chambers, who came up with the COCO method, continuously contemporary accounting method, the COCO method. And of course, he said when he passes away, maybe then the method will be adopted. But that COCO method, when I was in class, the COCO method actually is the fair value accounting method. Finally we say, mashallah, which is also in line with the, Islamic accounting, because we need to, like gold, for instance, right? It's always to the fair value, the current value. And of course, last time we had the current accounting method, current cost method, and so on. So, so the normative guys, they always argue based on that, based on the method that we use. Okay, but as I said just now, not many want to do on the standard setting, and especially from Islamic accounting, I think there's a lot of work that can be done. Inshallah, it's a lot of work. Naturalistic perspective. This is another one. Grounded theory. Not many also want to use this grounded theory. Okay, I don't know why, but it is good, right? The idea is to develop new concepts and theories of business-related phenomena again, okay, studying the phenomena, and then where these concepts and theories are firmly grounded in qualitative data. Of course, if someone is good in qualitative analysis and all that, then thing. But now I see majority of them prefer to do quantitative analysis rather than doing qualitative analysis. But if we can also have a mixed method, so probably this theory can be also useful, because you want to find something, a new phenomena, right? Like 40 years ago, let's say, Islamic finance, banking was something new. Okay, probably then I think ground theory could have been also very useful. Now, as I said, wallahu alam, because Islamic banking, even conventional banking, for how long they're going to be around? And then things are moving very fast in fintech, Islamic fintech, okay, e-wallet, e-banking, blockchain, cryptocurrency, mashallah. The Bitcoin went up very high, and then suddenly after the Trump lost everything, then it came down again. See, there's all alBaqarah there, right? The speculation is there, but yet people believe that Bitcoin is the alternative to gold. You can read the fatwa from SAC Bank Negara. We can discuss that, inshallah we can discuss that. I discussed it in my class, fatwa by SAC and Bank Negara, because it is similar to gold, and it's limited in numbers. Never mind, and it's another topic that we can also discuss. Is Bitcoin also a commodity? Right? Can you also be used in tawarruk transactions or not? So the grounded theory will give this, probably from the scholar's perspective, from the practitioner's perspective, from other perspective, academics, and so on, and looking into the history of the use of gold in transactions, and then the use of Bitcoin in the transactions. I tell you, not many papers are coming out. Not many research are coming out. It's beautiful to study this because of the new developments, the new phenomena that we have. Probably then I think that will, will give us more meaningful research findings, inshallah. Okay. Grounded theory, again, I think there were a few professors in New South Wales, I think, and those who went to New South Wales, they have used this theory, grounded theory, to understand the real problems. And alhamdulillah, I think the study is very good coming out, this thing. Institutional, I think this is very popular, right? How they interact with the environment and things like that. Okay, so institutional theory. Legitimacy, and this is another one. I know quite a number of you use this thing. Social contract between business and society, right? So the company or the firms want to say that what do you call it? Their existence is legitimate, right? And they want to prove to the society, they want to prove to the people. And I think CSR studies have used this legitimacy theory, right? Especially in CSR, what I call partly on this thing. You want to prove that by doing CSR, we need to say that they exist and they are important to a society. What about Islam? What's Islamic perspective? You know, you want to give zakat? How? You want to give wakaf? How? Okay, so seldom I see that argument coming into legitimacy. You know, and we adopt legitimacy, of course, because the CSR research will only talk about you know, company are also important and firms exist among the societies, and society must realize that, you know, these companies are around, say like Nestle, you know, Goodyear, and so on. So they have to do CSR. Okay, then it's good to see, is that what prescribed by Islam, right? How it should be done from the Islamic perspective. So is this theory reliable from the Islamic perspective? You know, especially you want to give zakat, wakaf, and things like that. Okay, Allah Alam. Stakeholder, I think all of you already know lah. Okay, so means everybody's involved in there. But let's discuss about from the Islamic perspective whether or not how this should be also this thing, the company's role in the society, inshallah. Critical perspective. Not many studies, you know. I know that not most of, in fact, none of you want to do this. You know, prefer to collect data and then this thing. But then there's some universities overseas, I think, and they like to do a critical perspective. I had a very good friend in my old place. He doesn't like all this positive and normative and all that. Right? He's the guy who taught auditing and political auditing and things like that. So he loves to criticize. You know, but here you have to be good in writing and in criticism, right? But this is a branch of philosophy. Okay, so if you love philosophy, maybe then that is a good idea lah. That distinguish between real world and the observable world. Okay, so there are two worlds. Okay, what is the real world? Okay, so if you're talking about capital market, Islamic capital market is happening there, then it's a real world, right? But what is the observable world? So they say that the real cannot be observed and exists independent from human perceptions, theories, and constructions. Okay, but you can argue also whether or not we can observe the real, but how real is real, isn't it? Like the economists always talk about interest rate, you know, because we cannot be detached with the economy also. So the interest rate, but then they talk about real interest rate, mashallah, inflation rate, and then the real inflation rate, you know. So how real is real? And the real truth of what the world is about, and then of course what you can observe from the real world, and then you criticize positively and also giving more feedback. You know, here I see that no, not many or not all of you do not want to do this because it's quite difficult. You know, coming up with to observe the real world, and then what is the observed world, okay, and then the perceptions and theories and constructs. construct that can help to understand the real world, right? I think even myself, so I think I don't do that, okay? It's just that when we observe the happenings, the real happenings, probably we also still collect data and see what can be done to overcome. Theory of state, this, it's like a theory of firm, but it is a state, okay? Is embedded, the state is embedded, shaped by domestic, global, social structure. So it's all because of globalization and capitalism, right? It's of the theory of state. Okay, now in this case, they talk about globalization. Yes, we know about globalization. It's all global now, interrelated, interconnected, fine. But capitalism, right? So they want to go for capitalism in this theory of state. But in our case, if capitalism is no go, then what is alternative? Okay, so probably we can change this theory to theory of Islamic State, but then it's also dangerous, right? And then say, mashallah, Islamic State means what? And because perception of that is become very difficult, where is ISI and all that. Okay, mashallah, so so maybe theory of Islamic firms can also be considered. Allah. Now I want to go to the others also. It's almost 4 o'clock now. Tax and zakat research. Here we basically, what they do, these tax people, they use these theories very commonly. TPB, theory of planned behavior. You can also adopt that into other financial or managerial accounting research. What is the planned behavior, if it is important and also relevant. Okay, so here actually TPB widely used in this thing. So and also zakat. Okay, but if you look into this one, first is about attitude, and then subjective norm, and then perceived behavioral control. It shapes the individual behavior intentions. Very interesting, right? TPB is all about that. It's the attitude, subjective norm, and perceived behavioral control. Tax research, very popular with this theory, right? Because you plan your behavior. You always want to evade your taxes. But what about zakat? When people use this theory, mashallah, unless you use the theory, explain theory, and then you must criticize the theory, right? Is it applicable or not? Attitude, maybe, attitude of the zakat payers. Although in the Quran, zakat is wajib, okay, it's compartmented wajib. But our attitude to pay, so that is quite common. I mean, normal for human being, isn't it? Even Harun did not pay zakat. When Nabi Musa asked him to pay zakat, he said, no, everything came from my own effort. Nabi Musa was also very surprised to see the attitude, right, of the Quran. So now the idea is how to change the attitude, even zakat payers, okay, and a subjective norm. What is norm, right? If everybody is paying zakat, then it's norm. Of course, if nobody is paying tax, and I think in tax, in economy, we talk about the black economy, the underground economy, well, that happens, isn't it? It is happening. But in zakat, if that's also happening, then something is wrong, isn't it? Something is really wrong because it's individual behavior. And then deterrence theory. This is another one, right? Taxpayers would like to have cost-benefit analysis. Is it beneficial or is it going to be a cost to them, right? But in zakat, can we do that? Why? What's the whole idea of paying zakat or sadaqah? Zakat especially. Okay, sadaqah can be voluntary. What about zakat? That's why I don't agree. Zakat is a part of social finance. It is Islamic public finance. So we have to change that. If we can change that, then it becomes also something like mandatory, like tax. And then we say that it helps the social economy, but it goes into the mal, the baitul mal. So baitul mal comes from the zakat, especially from the zakat. So that is very important for Islamic public finance. Wallahu alam. You can discuss with your supervisors and those who are expert in this area. And then we have prospect. Okay, prospect theory is a psychology theory. So a lot of behavioral and psychology is used in tax. So I think this is also good about the risk that can be taken by the taxpayers, probability and uncertainty. But what about zakat? You want to take the risk? Wallahu alam, how are you going to explain in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I also don't know, and uncertainty and all that, right? So the probability of you want to not to be detected, right, in tax. So that is the idea of prospect theory. But when you use it also in zakat, if I am there, I'll question a lot lah. I'll question a lot. Wallah, is to improve the thesis, not to just to bring down, but giving the alternative how, why, because we have to read a lot. We also have to read. Okay, then only then we see a lot of contradicting factors coming in and things like that. Wallah alam. Expected utility theory. Okay, this is in economics. The maximum utility that you can get. From choosing the action. Okay, what is the maximum, right? From the tax perspective. And when you look into zakat perspective, if you say that this is relevant, how? Are you maximizing your utility, your satisfaction? Utility satisfaction, right? Are you maximizing your satisfaction? Probably yes to me. Because why? Then I think you want to say that, when you give zakat, Allah SWT knows about that. And then the satisfaction is you are now already answering the call of Islam. Okay. So if you look it in a different dimension, from Islamic dimension, it should be different. Although the same, the word utility is there, satisfaction is there. But what type of satisfaction that we have, from this thing? Because I see people, I think I don't supervise anymore in this area. Look, I think Dr. Swahela knows. I think only one student. I'm not so sure. I don't supervise anymore. But then I don't know why. Because but when I read more and more, I said this is the idea that we should discuss further on tax and zakat. There are two different things actually. This is IT, okay, information system research. My student in Dr. Adel used this diffusion of innovations for our fee standards. That was very interesting. How we use this Rogers theory, from a technology perspective into Islamic accounting perspective, because it talks about how, why, and what rate new ideas and technology spread. This is what Roger mentioned, talked about in his book, Diffusion of Innovation. So if you talk about diffusion innovation, then is e-wallet and innovation, is blockchain and innovation, is Islamic fintech and innovation, and then diffusion of innovation theory can help, because this theory helps to explain how, why, and new ideas. Then I can agree with that. It gives a better perspective and the way you use it in the new phenomena, especially in blockchain, cryptocurrency, and all things like that. Task technology fit, well, it says that, a positive impact on the performance of the individual based on the task. Okay, based on the task. And now we know that IT people, even AIS, when they look into the task, it's changed a lot, what's happening now in the IT world. So when you bring this into AIS or whatever, then that must also be relevant to the study, inshallah. Okay, let me see. I have maybe another 20 minutes to go. But you have any questions so far? Sorry, 1 hour.
Dato, there are some questions. Maybe we can start off with...
I didn't see the ni ke?
Dekat chat. Sorry. Dekat chat.
Chat. Where do I find the chat? Do I have to stop first?
No. I mean, can we interrupt? I mean, to have some question and then you...
Yeah, I think
continue?
after one, you know me lah. I will never stop talking.
Yeah. Dato, there's some question here. Is that...
Can you read the question or not, Dr. Colin?
Okay. I will read the question. Monter asks, how can you use two theories in your thesis which is not consistent, I think, together, like agency theory and stewardship theory?
Ah.
Uh,
So if
how
it is
can
not concerned from the very beginning, right? Understanding the theory is important, right? And then dissect the theory, and then once the theory doesn't conform to other theory, so that's why the last slide I say, what is your best theory that fits into your study? Isn't it? We come to the last end. The study, the theory that fits into your study, rather than using theories that doesn't fit into your study, isn't it? That's why I said just now when I see that. Hold on, I want to. Uh, the students have the problem of dissecting the theories and maybe not looking in depth, understanding the theory and application of that theory, right? So if you have two theories is enough, some of the studies, or even, if it fits into that the study, why you have to have a number of theories, right? Unless, because it cannot explain the phenomena, and as you mentioned just now, it contradicts each other, and then of course, unless, because when you select your variables, definitely you have to select based on the theory that fits your research. Okay, next.
another question is that all theories in commercial businesses, I think in the conventional side, have Islamic perspective on the other side? That is the question. Do you think
Or
that,
do all of them have
yeah,
also a counterpart?
counterpart?
Counterpart.
I think this is the one that you asked, just you explained that we need to look into the Islamic perspective, right?
Yeah. Because if we understand the Surah Al-Baqarah, and the basic lah, and then we look into the agency theory and so on, does it fit into the Ayah, right? So how then the accountability and responsibility should be looked from the Islamic perspective? So that's why it's good to have the conventional theory, or whatever you call it, the theories that are really in existence, and then looking into literature. But not many people have written that, isn't it? Maybe on Maqasid, yes, I know. Even looking from, but not many people have criticized these theories from Islamic perspective. And I'll come to my last slide later on, how even Alfie does not talk about the theories, but they have a conceptual framework. They have a conceptual framework. So it's good that you are the PhD students to really look into it and discuss and defend and explain, isn't it? Looking at the ayah, all the ayah yang that are relevant, that you can say that is this correct? So definitely, as I mentioned just now, also a number of these theories, it works in the text, but does it work in zakat? Okay, it works in financial reporting. What about Islamic financial reporting? Okay, because to me, and Dr. Kulin, to me, we are in the university. We cannot be saying, oh, then what will people say? But if you can explain, and because not many people will understand the Islamic perspective, maybe we have to do that, effort, and then also to educate the public, the industry, and so on, inshallah.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Dato. And then there's another one. May I know further on the role of theories in qualitative research? I think
Oh,
it's the grounded one, I think.
grounded lah, kan?
Grounded, right?
There are actually many actually. I'm not very good also. One of them is grounded theory. I think Dr. Kulin you have used grounded, and
No, no.
no, oh, okay. I thought who has used grounded in our faculty?
Sure, I'm not
Not
sure.
sure. So most of them are quantitative guys, So qualitative, yeah, grounded theory, it works, and then probably also understanding the grounded theory, and then from there, maybe looking also from the Islamic perspective. Just now we discussed about the e-wallets and Islamic fintech and all that. It's something new, trying to explore something new. And then what about the payment systems, right? And then we also look into the contracts, the contracts that we talked about just now, can Bitcoin, what? Then is it alternative commodity? So you can you have to study it and probably then look into from the Sharia also, inshallah, right?
Okay, I think the two last question. I think, can you suggest some theories that may help in tax evasion research? I think you have already mentioned just
Tax
now.
evasion,
Yeah, tax evasion research.
yeah, just now I mentioned about the
Reimbursement.
deterrence, right? And very popular is the one, I think, TPB,
Mm,
plan behavior.
okay.
If you're talking about tax lah,
Mm,
that is quite common in tax research.
okay.
But I asked, because a few of them also doing zakat. Then my question is this theory relevant also for zakat?
Mm,
You plan yourself not to pay tax. It's okay. Maybe, is it okay? Wallahu alam, then the country will also lose tax revenue. But you cannot, you plan to reduce your zakat. Wallahu alam. You have to think a lot of that.
okay.
Okay, Dato'?
And then last question for Sharia audit practice, what theory do you think is best fit? Are we limited to the theory?
Sharia audit, Sharia audit is a practice, isn't it? And then, as we know, Sharia audit is an internal practice at the moment. Kan? It is still an internal practice, not done by external Sharia auditors yet. The external audit, the Sharia audit, so-called external Sharia audit, is been done by carried out by the regulator, by negara. I think all of you know that. Once a year to all these IFIs. So it's an internal thing, just like management accounting practice and budgetary process and all things. So it involves what? If you look into the practice or the what do you call it, the process, Sharia or even the SGM, let's look at SGF. The Sharia audit department will report directly, the report, when it comes to communication of the report, it straight to BAC, the Board Audit Committee, right? So whatever Sharia findings that we have from our audit program, the Sharia audit program, that will be highlighted to the BAC. So if you look at, you can see the whole process in the SGF, although SGF has been, now it's not in this thing, but that is the crux of the whole thing, how the process of reporting goes up. And then of course now STPD also gives emphasis on that. STPD, Sharia Governance Policy Document, by negara, kan? But yet still they haven't come up to the proper guidelines yet. Inshallah lah kot. And there's another big task coming up to have proper guidelines. So when you look into the reporting process, it's all internal, right? It is from the Sharia audit Sharia audit team to the BAC, and of course you can discuss with the SC, the Sharia committee. There's a dotted line there, isn't it? They also want to know. And finally, of course, the management and this thing. But when you go to this part, then the question is, you're reporting to whom, right? Definitely the practice. I just now we talk about theory, practice, and the research. Now, the practice is, if there are big firms, IFIs, then they have a separate unit for Sharia audit. But most of them are under the internal audit department or the reporting to CIA, right? Chief Internal Auditor. So the CIA may have some Sharia background or no Sharia background, isn't it? So that is also another issue. Then when that comes out, then the reporting then goes to the BAC, isn't it? But I think SGF, you can go back and read SGF very carefully. And now even more, the STPD, the penalties imposed are millions if you make a mistake. So you cannot make a mistake in your findings and also to your reporting to the BAC, right? So if anything happens, then there's a big responsibility of the Sharia auditors, especially when you do not detect the non-compliance, SNC, right? The SNC part. When you cannot detect a major, of course we have that major and minor, high, medium, and low. Especially the big ones, major finding, SNC, and then how to report that, isn't it? So in terms of theory, that's why you have to see what's the practice like. If you're doing Sharia audit, it's better to go and talk to the auditor and see what's the practice like, right? Then only you see what's happening inside the banks or takaful institution. Then you see there is more of what is a human factor, right? Or regulatory factor, right? And regulatory, yes, more on the human side, and the reporting to whom? CIA, and then of course other things. So it can be just like the budgetary process, isn't it? Budgetary process, and then of course you can refer back to the internal audit, the normal internal audit. They're also doing the same thing, right? The same thing. Only thing is they do not look into Sharia compliance, especially Sharia non-compliance events. So when you don't look into Sharia non-compliance events, so this becomes more very specific. And even then, SNCs, if you cannot say that every event is SNC, isn't it? So you see, so you look into process, and then applicability of that the theory lah, is more on the human side. Wallahu alam.
Okay, Dato. Oh, banyak. There's more questions.
Baik,
But
nanti I think macam
I
ni
think
Dr.
reserve.
Colin,
I think reserve.
why
I
not you
reserve.
email to me later?
No. It's I think I reserve these questions towards the end of the session.
Oh, ya ke?
Okay, kalau boleh lah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Okay.
I thought we are only given another 10 minutes lah.
Okay. Kalau Datuk go, if you can go to the theoretical framework for a while. I mean, we have not.
Okay. There are
finished
two
yet.
parts here. Theoretical
Okay.
framework, very important. Okay. And then what you see is a structure and can hold or support. The root word is theoretical framework. It comes from the theory, right? The root word is already the theoretical framework. So a good theoretical framework to me it should be based on comprehensive literature review, right? Here is very difficult. You must do a good thorough literature review, right? And then based on the analysis of main theories advanced by leaders in the field. So you have to read the other the theories, the main theories, especially the relevant, and the main theories that are relevant, to your study or the field. And then does it represent or is it relevant to the most current state of this research topic? How relevant is this, right? Then only you can bring it to your theoretical framework. Does the theoretical framework present logical, coherent, analytical structure that will help in the data analysis? You see, so there's a flow there actually, right? There's a flow there, the logical, coherent, analytical. And then do the different parts of theory constitute a coherent, comprehensive model that will help to analyze the relationship. And then will the TF also be able to answer research questions or test the hypothesis? Okay. So very important is the theoretical framework should be able to answer your research questions and also hypothesis. But if you think that it is not there, then the whole of a TF is not good enough. A TF talks about something else, but then your research questions and hypotheses are also way apart. Okay, and then of course the sources. So just here I think it's good to also, when you source, look from the Islamic perspective, inshallah. CF. Okay, CF is logical orientation, and that one just now was theoretical. Now it's conceptual. Okay, so what it means? Okay, here let me talk to you. So actually it comprises of researchers' thoughts. What do you think about your own research? That is actually CF. Talks about the research topic, problem, questions asked, literature. Okay, so it's also another direction. It's a flow. To guide you also. The conceptual framework will also guide you from the beginning of research topic, problem, questions, literature, and the theories. Although the theoretical framework is based on theories, but the CF will also have to look into, are the theories applied are relevant to the current study methodology? And so this whole thing talks about your research process also, right? Your CF. Okay, some questions I can ask. Okay, what do you want to do in your research? Okay, you need to say your research topic, right? Title, your topic itself. Is it a relevant topic? Just time we also discuss that. Why do you want to do it? Why is it important to conduct that research? And why is it significant? Significance here, not only to the, to expand the boundary of knowledge, the body of knowledge, but I think very important also being in FAM, right? We have the business world, so we have to be also relevant to the business world, right? And the industry itself, okay? So that it becomes more relevant to them. That is also very, very crucial. I know getting a PhD means, okay, fine, but very important is the impact after the PhD. And then the objectives. So which special objective we pursue? What's the scope like? And then, of course, how do you plan to do it? So planning is the early stage in the CF, okay, and methodology and so on. And also looking into participants and the unit analysis, right? And then data gathering and, of course, analysis of that data. Okay, more on that CF, okay. I think number 5 is more interesting for most of you are also in that this thing. Worldview, okay. So worldview, of course, now we know, if you look into literature and everything, most of the literature, alhamdulillah, now I think we have a lot of literature also in Islamic finance, Islamic economics, management, marketing, Islamic marketing, Islamic accounting. Our worldview should be Islamic worldview, okay? Our worldview should be Islamic worldview. But then we cannot go and say, no, wherever I read is all about internal audit, nothing to do about, no one talks about it. It's fine, it's fine. But you have to go and dig from the real sources, okay? Probably from Quran, Hadith, and so on. Okay, that is a challenging thing, lah. But that will build up your thesis. And then what? We talked about positivism just now, interpretivism, paradigm, critical paradigm, or pragmatic paradigm. Okay, so which is the worldview? Okay, this thing, and then Islamic worldview. Okay, how that is it in line with the positivism, or the normative guys? Okay, or the critical guys, right? So that can also make your understanding of the worldview on both sides. Okay, both sides. Of course, the ultimate aim is to achieve maqasid. Okay, maqasid. Then how will that be represented in your thesis? And then, of course, findings in your report. This is what I wanted to say mention now. The RPCF. I think now, alhamdulillah, I think they given everyone can have an access to it on the financial reporting and Sharia standards. Now, last time only Sharia standards, very difficult. When I went to Bahrain end of RP conference 2019, I managed to get that lah. You see, but then alhamdulillah, now I think finally when I met Omar Mustafa, the Secretary General, I said, please share the knowledge, rather than keeping the knowledge to yourself, so alhamdulillah, I think they all agreed to come with this. I think now everybody can have a good access. So this is the revised version, but again, they mentioned that compliance with Sharia principles, rules, even in matters relating to financial reporting is paramount for an institution. So that is no go, and it must be complied, isn't it? Even if in the case of inconsistency between Sharia principle and rules as applicable to the institution on one hand, and accounting policy developed under the CF on the other hand, the Sharia principle and rules shall prevail, and the institution shall adopt accounting policy in accordance with it. Okay. And then of course, Sharia principles and rules serve as the foundations, but the Sharia standards, as you can see, is all in Arabic. So far, they have not translated to the English. Only for the accounting, governance, auditing, and ethics. They are doing it in English. But the framework is the foundation is on Sharia principles and rules. That's very good. And in fact, I didn't put it here. In fact, there's a chapter on that now. Please look at it. And now it's already available. They have opened up finally after all these years. Otherwise you want to buy from them also take many months or many years sometimes. They weren't interested, but now alhamdulillah, I think that's very good. But of course, this becomes our benchmark lah. Benchmark in our study, comparing with MFRS, IFRS, and so on. Let's look at it. But again, we know that this is specifically for IFIs. But if you look into this CF, there's one sentence there saying that, inshallah, they want to extend that to the non-IFIs too. That's very good. That's very good. Just like external Sharia audit. We don't have it in Malaysia, but Alfie has already adopted that, and I think Bahrain is doing it already. Okay. So conclusion. So please read a lot of theories, compare them, not only in accounting, but also in other disciplines, and then choose the most appropriate theory. It must be appropriate and relevant. And then, of course, if you see in the Viva, most of them ask what is the underlying theory. If you have 2 or 3, what is underlying theory? That must be explained and justified. So if you're doing on the Islamic perspective, that's also very interesting. I think Ali went through yesterday the Viva. It's good that the examiner also doesn't know much about the Islamic accounting. So I have to, I don't know, Ali, you're around? I'm sorry, I asked too many questions yesterday maybe. But I think that's good to help you to beef up your thesis. There's a theory conforms to Sharia principles and rules, right? Very important, like what Alfie CF is talking about. Need to explain, justify. This is something lacking, students don't like to explain and justify, you're scared. You tell whether it's correct or not. And that can be discussed with your lecturers and supervisors. And then theory and variables selected, and of course the implications finally, inshallah. Okay, some of these references here, and of course, shukran jazilan. Okay, thank you very much. I think, alhamdulillah, I think it's 4:28, 2 minutes to 4:30. And then I think if you follow the Japanese time,
Dato, can we have a few questions?
Okay.
I think, thank you, Dr. Rosnia. I mean, she mentioned that Prof. Rahim is using grounded theory for his PhD. Okay, and then there's one thing I also want to ask the same question, is that challenging part for those who are doing Islamic accounting, they want to put the Islamic part in their theory. I mean, can you mix it up? I mean, some of the theories that which is have conventional with the Islamic one. I mean, what is your opinion, Dato?
Okay, my take is this way. We have all the theories in the conventional business, right? We know that agency, stakeholder, whatever. But what we need to do in USIM especially, and especially if you're studying on the IFIs, and the Islamic institutions and Sharia compliant companies in the Bursa, then looking at this theory, and also looking from the Islamic perspective, right? You need to dissect. You have to also look into the theory. Does it apply or not? Like just now about accountability, responsibility, okay, justice in Islam, okay, maslahah, okay. So if you want to look into that perspective, then why don't you write and talk about it, and then to say that can we have even agency theory? Only which looks only into the relationship between the principal and the agent. But we know that ultimately, the accountability and responsibility is to Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, as was mentioned by the surah. So based on that, okay, the first is to Allah. Then if that is the case, how can you now look into this thing? Because now if you look into all these problems that we have in governance and all that, because I think it is simply because of the just two parties. There's no ultimate responsibility, isn't it? So if that is the case, then probably you can bring in also the aspect of religiosity, isn't it? There are a lot of studies been done on religiosity, but then what aspect of it that can also enhance the agency theory? So to me, it is no harm, but when you also look into the Islamic perspective, then you have to discuss it also in the Islamic perspective. That is the way to go, inshallah. Okay, done?
All right. Okay, last one. I think Brother Lukman, I mean, the practice is Nigeria is to propose, I think he proposed Sharia audit framework for Nigeria. So there's no Sharia. I think what I can do, probably can I share your email to him?
Can.
Okay,
so he's talking about Sharia governance framework or Sharia
Sharia audit framework.
Oh, Sharia audit framework.
framework for Nigeria. So I think maybe Brother Lukman, you can email to Dato and to us on this matter. Is it okay,
Now,
Dato?
man, I have a team, inshallah.
Okay.
I cannot say that I'm the only expert. I'm not
All
expert
right.
too. Inshallah, we can share and then from my team, and we can also give you, it's from Nigeria.
Yeah, he's from Nigeria, Brother
Okay,
Lukman.
inshallah. Because for information, our SGF, which came out in 2010, almost 11 years ago, has been widely copyrighted or whatever it is like the word. They did a good job in copying it right. Copy it right. I said if you want to do a copy, you want to copyright, you want to copy that framework, you must copy it right, right? And that's what they did. Like Oman, even Brunei, and they improve it. Improve the communication part. If you look into the diagram, SJF, when you look into audit reporting and communication, we also very confused, in the Malaysian SGF. But then, alhamdulillah, I think the other countries that adopted it, but we were the pioneer. We were the pioneer, alhamdulillah. But then, of course, there are flaws. But then when the other countries adopted it, we can see that they have improved it. And that's good, that's good. But then suddenly we thought that we come up with a SGF 2.0, but they didn't do it. Our Bank Negara didn't do that. They suddenly come out in 2019, last year effective April last year was STPD, isn't it? The Sharia policy paper. So I think, okay, this is good. And then probably the guidelines are the one that are a bit missing code. Wallahu alam.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dato. Thank you so much. I think we stop here. Like you said, it's Japanese time.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Unless if there are more questions.
But
Otherwise,
more questions, because I think
but why
there's
don't you ask them if there are any questions now? Any questions?
any questions. If you want to ask Dato, you can ask him now. You can open up your microphone. I mean, you can ask him whatever you want.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Salam.
Dato, how are you? I am
Alhamdulillah.
Monda. Okay, Monda. Okay, please give your questions to Dato.
First, I want to thank you so much, my supervisor, Dato Mustafa, for this useful lecture and information that maybe is benefit all of audience. But Dato, if I ask why Malaysian still now don't apply the OFI standards, especially as you know, the Malaysian is the leader in finance, Islamic finance. Another many countries is already applied the OFI, but still Malaysia cannot apply this OFI.
Monda, I think you already know the answer also, right? We are, that's why I say, to me, it's good to share. When I go to Bahrain, I love to share, because they also share with us. And of course, the brothers there always say that, when are you going to follow us, come together and things like that. Of course, I think the researchers and the academics are with them. We got no problem. But this is more from the government perspective. You know that Malaysia has the IFSB, right? Islamic Financial Standards Board. So the IFSB, although we are not, to me, very frankly, we have all that, guidelines and standards and things like that. But when you look into AUFI, they have more, what do you call it, comprehensive. Comprehensive. Even Dr. alBaqarah and Dr. Aznan, and they always also be engaged with AUFI. So they are more comprehensive. Comprehensive. Malaysia say that because we have ISB, and so we have that regulations and rules, that will suffice. I mean, it's good enough for Malaysia. But I think it's good also to have a look. Like now, like external Sharia audit, they already implemented already. You are right. Malaysia should be the leader. When we are the leader, we should be moving faster. But because of, I don't know what's happening, the regulators and all that, so we are not that fast enough. But we are happy to see that the professional bodies are also coming out. And they're relying more on the universities to do the research and also come up what's the best practice That's good. I think that's good. The best practice for the industry, especially from the Sharia audit perspective, and hopefully we can do something for the profession. That also will be also good. But as I said, Alfie is doing a very good job. They're doing a very good job, and that's why those countries that do not have their own regulations follow Alfie very much, just like the IFRS, isn't it? IFRS. So hopefully that one day the top people can sit down together and then discuss how to solve the problem. Allahu Alam.
Thank you so much, Dato.
All right. Any other question? But I think I have Brother Alias here. Brother, he was one of the member developing Islamic accounting standards for national level.
Okay.
And then he was said like why there is some problem in applying this IOFI. Facing problem for the developing Islamic
Brother
accounting
Alias,
standard.
are you doing PhD in USIM?
No, Prof.
Okay.
I'm studying. I'm now doing PhD at UKM, but
Oh.
I'm actually from the National Audit Department of Malaysia. So I'm one of the member of developing of the Islamic accounting standards for Zakat, Wakaf, and also Baitul Mal.
That has been completed, isn't it?
Yes, we are already completed for phase 1 and now getting for finalizing for phase 2. We have 4 phases. Phases. Okay. So yes, I agree with Prof that we are in the process of developing the standard. We are facing issues on the first about the fair value. Okay. Whether we wanted to use that fair value for wakaf, or especially for masjid, building the masjid. What is the fair value for that masjid, and what is the worst? Is it worth to evaluate or measure that amount and represent the whole thing of the Islamic religious body? Okay, so for example, if we give that about 10 million for that building, but that is not the things that the stakeholders wants to know. They want to know how it can be utilized, whether the social impact from there. It's another issues. And it's also same happen for the funeral issues. Okay, land for the funeral. How much the fair value, is it worth to measure that according to the fair value instead of looking into the social impact, whereby currently the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, using the social impact as a measurement.
Yeah.
I'm actually encourage if USIM can look further on this, as measurement of fair value only apply for those more towards the commercial transaction instead of social transaction. That will help us because we have from representative of the Islamic bodies, also from the legal, such as Attorney General representative, also from the MSB, MIA, AG is Accountant General Office, and also from the 3 academicians from UKM, from UIA, and also from USN who contribute also in this research. But we are a little bit hiccup, especially on the istidlal, when how to treat about it. Is it through propriety principles, separate entity principle, or at the or on the fund accounting principle? 3 of these principles was so difficult to stand, and both 3 researchers is facing trying to solve this issue. Maybe USIM can look into further on this. If there is
I thought Alias, I want to just interrupt, Alias.
Yes.
Is your research, your PhD work also in this area now?
No.
Allah, mashallah, inshallah.
I know I know that it is also relevant, but I also have in the audit department something that also relevant for us to solve about it. That's why I'm looking one area first. If I have, maybe I can continue for another PhD, but I don't know. Okay,
It's a
But
good idea. Yeah, it's a good idea. I
uh,
think we also explore that, in terms of measurement, especially for Baitul Mal assets, right? And also the Wakaf assets, right? Very
yeah, of
interesting.
course, if we think about the principle of ownership, yes, in the conventional, but
Yeah.
in the Islamic religion, that is not their asset. This belongs to Hablu minallah, yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
from the God, the Almighty God. So how to account of it? It should be being presented as the financial assets. Or
Okay,
it should,
Alias, I just want to share with you something. I know that this is phase one has been completed. I understand that. And then this is also under IPN again.
it is lead by the Accountant General Office.
So IPN lah, under IPN, right?
Uh,
Institut Perakaunan Negara.
no. It is from the Office of Accountant General Office.
Accountant General Office. Because we were also informed about this project, and then they said that we were asked to review, but then because of the COVID, I think later local. So inshallah lah, I think that is a very big task, and then to understand, and I think it's wonderful, to look into this the matters that are relevant to Islam, and also to as you say about reporting. But have you gone through the zakat standards issued by AUFI?
Yes, of course. We have to do that also our reference, and also from the expert from the Shara also members, those from Fatwa, and we also have to look into their advice. Okay,
Good.
but I'm actually our group is actually looking to who else can do our research on the basis of the accounting measurement, instead of looking of fair value, which is not so actually in the Islamic religious activities. Okay, they are more social oriented also over there. So what is the best measurement actually to evaluate the asset? I don't think so masjid can do as a fair value, whereby actually we are looking into how it will give a good to the ummah itself, the community itself, how much they can contribute. Instead of looking to the fair value. Same apply to the funeral itself. Whether we want to put it as $1, which is now in practice, or we have to give some evaluation according to the benefit that gain from that community of the area. That were more worth to, that shows the busyness, the responsibility of Islamic religious body in compared with looking into the monetary.
Okay, inshallah. Thanks a lot for sharing a lot of things. I know about this project, and we will also approach. Inshallah, I think maybe we will also be coming into later on lah, inshallah. Thanks a lot. Okay, Dr. Kulin.
Okay, if nothing else, I think no more question from the chat. So I will say that we wrap it up. So I've already shared your email, Dato, with everybody. So
Okay, no problem. Inshallah.
Okay.
Welcome.
All right. I think thank you very much, Dato, for this eye-opening and then something exposure to some of us. We are still new.
To me, this is a knowledge sharing session.
Yeah, sharing session.
Yeah, I think I heard from quite a number of you, and also from this thing. I think it's very good. That's how the way forward lah. The way forward, inshallah.
All right. Thank you very much, Dato. Maybe we can have second session after this. We don't know. Before we go, I think Miza wants to take photo, all of us.
Okay, can everybody, whoever in the room?
In the room. So maybe we can on our video, your video, so we can take photo together.
Outside there is raining, that's why I have my background, Hopefully one day we meet together and then, inshallah. It's nice to see all those PhD students.
Yeah. Miza, can you open it up for everybody? I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do this one. Miza, apa ni?
No, it's okay. I think let them do it themselves, unless I'm not sure that.
Okay. Okay, Miza.
I takut the ladies may not want to.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile, everyone.
Smile.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you so much, Dato.
Fine.
Thank you for all the
No
participants.
problem.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
thanks
you
to
very
all the
much.
participants
Yeah,
and
thank
people
you.
who
We
thank
have,
you very much, inshallah.
okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Alright.
We hope
Hopefully,
that you
Dato.
will sharing. Okay, thank you.
all right. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.